So I would like to invite all of our guests and panelists right now to come and participate in our in an open discussion. We have a couple of questions right now that can be addressed, but probably I can start and ask the conversation, and probably I can start with some of our guests that they were very kind enough to participate in this event, but they didn't have a presentation. And I would like a quick comment. We can start with Mr. Athanasiou, which comes from the European Commission. Welcome once again. I think it's one of the many times that you have supported our chapter and participate on that. So just a brief opinion from your side as well, because right now what we're trying to do with this particular event is to bridge the two edges, I would not say edges, but the two parts of the Atlantic, and see what is going on the other side, and what is as Mr. Garcia has presented, and Mrs. Sita for the Greek part has presented from right now what's going on. So I would like to hear your opinion as well, and your.
Thank you for the invitation. Hi to everybody. It's good to see ex-colleagues and friends, faces from I had as a police officer in the ministry. Anyway, I think that this is a great momentum for the building sector in Europe. We see that buildings are very high in the political agenda. We had the Renovation Wave publication, but also we can see that in the renovation component of the recovery plans from many member states, but also we could see from the consultation we had in the framework of the renovation wave, the great support from stakeholders, but also the broader scope of the building sector and the renovations. Having said that, I think that there is a big opportunity ahead of us with the revision of the Energy Performance of Building Directive, with NZEB, Zero Energy Buildings in place now. We need to see the future vision of the building stock, what the new vision for the buildings of the future will be. We have new elements to bear in mind, like carbon metrics or health and environmental, indoor environmental elements, and many, many more. And in this context, I really believe that the energy performance certificates have a significant role to play. We all are aware of the issues that energy performance certification schemes might have, but this should not be, let's say, an excuse or a barrier. We have the EPC vision ahead of us, and we must try to improve the quality of the energy performance certificate. I think quality assurance is an important element. Also, we need to see how to increase the role of the certificate as a market tool with more information on cost, health issues that are closer to citizens. We also need to increase the share of EPCs, maybe EPCs for all buildings. This is how we're going to get the picture of the full building stock. And this is how we can actually monitor the energy performance of the building stock. Skills are important, so there is a big road ahead of us, but let's hope that we can manage that. So, yes, that would be my initial comment.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Mr. Boudakis, You are from the directorate that you are dealing with a lot of research programs. You are in charge of the Horizon 2020. So can you also describe us on this particular context? What can we expect from researchers or from new involvements or new things that they are developing right now on that particular issue?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. It's really my pleasure to be with you. Yes, my colleague Pau and Dimitris already underlined the importance the Commission is giving to buildings from the legislative point of view, but we also give the same high importance from research side. In the Horizon 2020 framework program, more than 600 million was the budget for research related to energy efficiency in buildings and digitalization. And similarly, we continue with the next funding program, Horizon Europe, where we take several initiatives. One is one of the 5 missions, the mission on climate neutral and smart cities. Just quickly to remind you that the missions are programs that, let's say, affect a big share of the society. Like, for example, another mission is to fund cure for cancer. So in the mission of cities, we will fund the research on 100 cities, which will operate as lighthouses for innovation and deep renovation and decarbonization. And these will operate as live examples for the rest of our society, so that we all reach the target for 2050. And we have the continuation of the energy efficiency buildings, the public-private partnership, the Build for People, public-private partnership that will continue with the funding for the next 7 years.
Okay, great, thank you. So just also, I would like also a quick comment from Tom. Tom, as you know, you have a huge work in front of you as being head of the decarbonization task force. I think that probably you had a quite thorough, I would say, option about what is going on here in Europe and how things are evolving right now. Can you please give us your first remarks about what you have seen today and what probably how this might affect your work? Yeah, okay, great.
Okay, I started talking and realized nobody could hear me. I'm sorry. First of all, I thought the presentations today were really, really good. And I actually made a lot of notes and things that I'm going to take back to the task force. A couple comments to kind of answer your question. It is a huge and very complex subject, decarbonization, and as I mentioned earlier, it obviously has triggered a lot of interest from a lot of people. One of the things we have found very early in our discussions, and then as the working groups get started, is that some of the definitions of things in the decarbonization world change from place to place, and some of the procedures and some of the way that people approach the whole decarbonization topic change from North America to Europe to the Far East. and we have all of those regions represented on our task force. And so we've begun to have discussions on our task force about how we reconcile that, and that's going to be a major issue. Right now, you know, the good news is for you in Greece and in Europe, the European Commission is well ahead of that whole discussion, and they have established their own standards and their own procedures, and we are taking a close look at that. The task force actually met yesterday, and Dimitri and Kostas were both on the call with us yesterday, and I really appreciate them participating. And they offered some perspective. Kostas offered a great perspective yesterday, and so I think that's going to be. I started to use the word challenge. It certainly is a challenge, but I think that's one of the tasks in front of us on the task force, in to reconcile and understand what we are doing in North America, where I live, what you are doing over in Europe, where you live, and because we want all of this work to be very much attacking the problem of carbon reduction from a very global perspective, and that's going to be a major task that's in front of us right now.
Okay, great. Yes, Dimitris, go ahead.
If I may, I would like to ask the two other speakers to join us in this open discussion, Mr. Garcia and Mrs. Sita. And if you can open your web cameras, and thank you. And now that we're all sitting on the same table, both sides of the Atlantic, do you think that we could start an initial discussion and see what each other side does, and see how we might be able to collaborate in the future? Because as they say in Greece, scratching and eating just needs a start, and probably collaboration needs a start too. And instead of reinventing or wasting time in doing research on matters that the other side has done, maybe we can be able to synchronize our efforts.
Yeah, if I can respond to that, Dimitri, that's exactly what we're looking for. As we start this task force, we are responding to requests from all over the world for ASHRAE to get involved in this discussion. But what we do not want to do is reinvent the wheel. We don't have time for that, and it's too important of a topic to waste time trying to do things that someone has already done. The whole concept of collaboration with folks from all over the globe is exactly what we're looking for. Thank you for bringing that up.
Mr. Athanasiou, I think you said yes. Yes, please go ahead.
If I may just say something, I mean, in the European Commission, we do have a big international agenda, and we are collaborating and exchanging ideas with, I mean, all the world, including the United States, Canada, Japan, Russia, India, everything. So just to mention, for example, next week there is a big, there is a workshop follow-up, actually from a broader, let's say, series of seminars with Canada, and this is already happening. And of course, we really do need to share experiences and good practices that we can, benefit from each other. We know that Europe is leading in some areas, but for other areas, for example, I think ESCOS is an area where the US is leading, and we all have to learn from each other. So I just wanted to share that it's already happening, and there are many events already existing.
Would it be possible to have a discussion as well, to be part of that discussion? Or what would be the mechanism to follow it up? And now that we're here, we can kickstart.
Definitely. These workshops are not between national authorities and only at the governmental level. It's mostly for stakeholders, for the buildings market. So maybe I can share with you some information. I mean, with Mr. Patelidis, and he can also share it with you. I think there is already something happening with the US, and I will also introduce to my colleague who is responsible for the international affairs and maybe the unit responsible to it. So I will dig a little bit further and I will come back to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Well, perhaps, I'm not sure, Tom, whether we should discuss our plans for next year and see whether the European Commission can be part of what we are planning for next summer.
Sure. I mean, I think that would be, what Dimitri is referring to is that the Hellenic chapter has already volunteered to host a major conference on decarbonization, and the new task force is going to work with the Hellenic chapter and sponsor that conference. We don't have a lot of details yet. It'll probably be sometime in October of 2022. So we have about a year and a half to plan the conference. And we've already started talking about it at the task force, but I think it's very appropriate, and I would welcome having representatives from the European Commission and others, involved in that conference. I think that would really make it, again, a much more attractive and much more global discussion.
Let's stay in touch and we can see how we can best collaborate on this. I'm sure we can find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Leaving always the floor open for anybody who would like to point out something of our guests. Yes, Alkis.
Sorry for bringing that up. I'm gonna take it from what Mr. Phoenix, Tom said, and I think this is the point. I think that we need a two-way collaboration for two obvious reasons. I think we had it at some point, and then we probably lost it. I mean, I remember myself, and you can probably see it on the ASHRAE.gr, the website of the Hellenic chapter. Back in 2017, I think I was doing one of the technical presentations here in Athens regarding the ASHRAE standard 211 and comparing it with the European standard we have, and showing to our colleagues here in Greece that how would they do, what's the difference between the energy performance certificates and the minimum requirements for buildings. And then we took it on another level, showing the minimum requirements for equipment, and then we had the European laws coming in for minimum requirements of buildings and equipment, the eco design, the ERP regulations. And then we started showing all the relevant ASHRAE guidelines and standards that, let's face it, probably ASHRAE has more guidelines and standards than anyone else in the world, and saying that, look guys, they have so we were saying to the Greek and the European engineers that you can use the ASHRAE 105 for the method of determining and expressing the energy performance. They have the standard ASHRAE of 180. So for the HVAC system, they have the standard of 189.1 for the performance green buildings. So they have a lot of standards, but yet at some point, somehow, we probably lost contact. So we continued our own path with the European legislations for decarbonizing our buildings. Especially in the last decade, we've seen a huge increase of those things. And on the other side of the Atlantic, they just stayed on the standards, and they have very good ones and the guidelines, but there wasn't some such sort of task force to enforce all those things and make them laws and make them mandatory. So this is, I think, where we should start collaborating.
Thank you, Algis. And right now it gives me the possibility to say as well that, as Tom said in the beginning, all these things happening by volunteers. So I think you all had the chair of the co-chair of the task force asking for people to participate. So I think we have a lot of people in the audience. We had more than 150 attendees in our event today. So this is a message for, I think, everybody in the audience that this is something that it's happening through everybody, through all of us. So it's very easy and very convenient, very easy for everybody to collaborate and participate in this particular issue. It's something that concerns all of us. So I have a couple of questions from the audience. I will try to address them, but to specific presenters. But feel free, everyone from you, to comment on that. Sorry, I know Doug we cannot see him by this unfortunate event, but I don't know if, Doug, you can hear us. There is a question for you. Whether the quotient, which is in the building EQ, the last letter, it sort of refers to comparison. And the question is, by the method of the building EQ is using, what exactly is compared to?
Okay, I guess you can hear me, George?
Yes, yes, definitely we can hear you, yes.
So we're looking at, I guess you're comparing, and I guess it depends whether it's as designed or in operation. But with the in operation, you are using measured data. So we're comparing that measured data to the baseline to come up with what the data is based on the comfort zone.
Okay.
It's climate zone, sorry, not comfort zone, climate zone.
Yes, climate zone, yes. Okay, great. We have also a couple of questions which are more, I think, related to in European policy context, right? Like, are there going to be mandatory requirements for applying minimum requirements for NZEB or something quite near to NZEB for existing buildings as well, apart from existing building major renovation?
I'll take that one. But actually, no, it should be Dimitris because he's the one leading in this in this area. No, but sorry, I should really let Dimitris answer this one. But it is basically, I just wanted to say, it is one of the options that we are studying. It's one of the points being presented in the renovation wave. We are looking at examples from other member states like the Netherlands and France, and it is one of the possibilities that we are discussing at the moment. And now I really let Dimitri speak because it's really his topic.
Thanks, Pau, but we can always. Two things. I think you referred to mandatory NZEB standards for existing buildings. So something similar to NZEB requirements for existing buildings. So yes, this is something that we will definitely consider in the impact assessment we're conducting right now for different policy options. But then we need to see the exact impacts that all these different policy options will have, and it will be decided. But it's something that we will definitely consider. On top of that, I think one of the most important measures that we will definitely propose. I mean, I can be more sure about it because it's already being mandated from the renovation wave. We're going to propose mandatory energy performance standards. This, I mean that, for example, these standards are specific requirements for buildings to reach a certain energy performance level as part of a specific, again, trigger point. For example, no building could be rated below energy category D. That would mean that is just an example. I'm not saying that this is going to be the case. It will be, I think it will be well debated also with other stakeholders and institutions. But yes, this is another type of mandatory standard that we will propose. So yes to both, let's say, type of standards, NZEB or something similar for existing buildings, and mandatory standards for all for different type of buildings, with a lot of flexibility to member states. So Vicky, you can be happy about it. It's
it is a question that I raised, and you know that already.
Yes, I see your face. So yes, don't worry. It's gonna be with a lot of flexibility, and we're gonna also provide guidance and a lot of, support for this.
One question, if I may.
Yes,
Actually,
definitely.
it's a question. It's after what Dimitris has already mentioned. Is that in any case, it is up to the member state to define if they will decide and which is the minimum requirement. So far, this is what we have gathered as an idea from all the discussions so far with the Commission. I mean, but in order to define, this is more or less, it's my thought, my personal thought. We have 4 million dwellings in Greece from the building stock. And for instance, we have run some scenarios recently, very recently, and over 2 million households fall in the categories, the last two categories. So basically, we're talking about a major amount of buildings that are going to be out of the market if we apply something like that. And taking into account the energy poverty parameter, which is for less, some of those people with low incomes reside in those buildings. This is a really, really complicated issue, and come back to what Carl has mentioned to tackle. Thank you.
If I may quickly respond to this, nobody said it's a simple issue. We have already tried that some years ago as part of the previous revision of the EPPD, but it didn't fly. Of course, the idea here is to get rid of the worst performing buildings segment, the segment of the building sector which are not performing well. And this is very important. It is not just for the wider benefits that we can all think about, the construction market, jobs, and everything, the environment, the increase of the renovation rate. It's also about health and safeguarding a minimum living condition. So we cannot simply let people rent households or dwellings or everything that are not fit for this job. So we need to make sure. So there are different levels of implementing these standards. It's not only performance-related standards. It could be also quality-related standards, or even at the building element. So it could be that no building can be rated without a proper insulation, for example. So it's going to be a big discussion about it. It is also important to combine it with support, financial support for the vulnerable, let's say, citizens or for low-income owners. And finally, I see that also Pau to make a comment. You can find in Pau's presentation a link to the public consultation. It is also important to have your saying there, because this is an important element that we really need your feedback.
Mr. Garcia, I think you wanted a comment.
Yeah, just very, very quickly. In addition to what Dimitris has said on the need for flexibility, just to highlight two very, very quick points. One of them is if we're thinking about this what we call minimum energy performance standards, we are really thinking about a progressive step-by-step introduction. So it's not about it wouldn't be something like, okay, tomorrow we have to do this. It's more a step-by-step approach. The other element, which is something that Dimitri said, reminded me of. There is an example that I find very, very interesting in Belgian Flanders, and there this minimum energy performance obligation is linked to the habitability of the building. So it's directly linked to the fact that a building has to be healthy. It has to be able to provide a comfortable environment. If you cannot do this, if the building is not capable of doing this, then this building is not inhabitable. It cannot be rented in the market. Not just because I find this link between energy efficiency and the habitability aspect very very important. And I think it's something that we need to bear in mind. But yeah, in any case, it's not an easy issue for sure. It's very, very complex.
Sorry, Dimitris, just before you ask, because we have a question on that, and I'll give you, sorry, you have to say about that, not only about the habitability, but also there are questions whether we should have also sustainability indexes also related to the buildings that we also have to take into account. Dimitris, sorry.
Well, I'd like to be a little bit provocative in our discussion. And we have to see in the future, we have to go beyond NZEB buildings. We have to go to NZEB neighborhoods or cities. I think we are having or trying to have an NZEB island, if I'm not mistaken, in Greece. We cannot hear you.
Green Island, Green Island, yes. Green autonomous island, yes.
Yes, and now ASHRAE, just to bless our own, has 125 years in HVAC, has a lot of literature that all engineers can use. Some of it is for free. For example, the Advanced Energy Design Guides. Probably Tom might say a few words for that. And we have to move forward, because we are starting to see mega cities, 10, 20, 30, 40 million per city. So our perception has to change. We cannot isolate a building just as a building. I think we are way past that. Anyway, Tom, if you would like to say about what we as ASHRAE are extremely good at doing in the HVAC field.
Okay. I'm sorry. You mentioned the Advanced Energy Design Guides. That's also something that's near and dear to me. I am currently the chair, and I have been the chair for several years, of the steering committee that publishes those guides. That steering committee is not, by the way, an ASHRAE committee. It's not formally on ASHRAE's organization, but it is staffed by representatives from ASHRAE, representatives from AIA, the American Institute of Architects, the U.S. Green Building Council, and the Illuminating Engineering Society. And we have been publishing design guides that are intended to direct you to achieve energy savings beyond ASHRAE 90.1. We've been publishing these guides since 2002. But since 2015, we changed our focus. And now those guides are directed to give you procedures for getting to a net zero energy building, and that's exactly why that's what you're talking about here. And so far we've published 2 of those guides, one for schools for kindergarten through 12 schools, and one for small to medium office buildings. They are intended to be used around the world. They are not just North America centric publications. We have another one that's coming out hopefully, the 1st of June. It should have been out by now, but the COVID issues have interfered with a lot of the publication procedures. But sometime in June, we will have one that's coming out that is getting to zero energy in multifamily buildings. And so that's what Dimitri was alluding to, the Advanced Energy Design Guides, which are available for free on ASHRAE's website, and they are really, really good, particularly these last. I'm very proud of these last couple ones that now get us to net zero energy.
Mr. Boudakis, I think you'd like to have a comment.
Yes, I would like to add on Dimitri's provocative comment. From our side, from DGRTD, our role is also, let's say, not to base our topic and our funding on current legislation, but we try to push the sector some steps forward. So we already fund 3 projects on what we call plus energy buildings. Each project is has to build 4 multi-story residential plus energy buildings. So these 12 buildings in total will act as lighthouses to show that we can have multi-story buildings that throughout the year they have a positive energy balance. And they are scattered all over Europe so that we can examine the different challenges that we can face, from example, in Nordic climate or in Mediterranean and so on. So far, the term of PEBs, plus energy buildings, does not exist in legislation, but maybe with the outcomes of these projects, we can see it in the future.
Dimitri's comments is always provocative, so there's no problem on that. So I have one last question. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
What I was trying to say is just before your question, and I won't say anything more. Perhaps COVID permitting, we should arrange for a physical meeting in the near future and try and discuss what we are talking now from afar. That would be interesting, even before next year's major conference.
I think it is a promise for all of our guests here that they were very kind enough to participate here. But I have, I think, one last question, and I think we'll be on with that. It's about this uniformity of EPCs. As Mr. Garcia said in his presentation, EPD is a directive. So basically what each member state is able to deal and say what is the methodology and they're going to use and how they're going to measure all that. So that means that we have EPCs from all around Europe, and we are 27 states, but probably we'll have over 30 different EPCs stating that the energy performance, so don't have a common benchmarking. Are there going to be any things that are relating to that on the policy context? This is a question that I have from here.
Yes, this is something that we are looking at. But how we are exactly going to approach it, that's still under discussion. I mean, it's a directive. It's not a regulation. So we need to see how we can do this. One option could be to really try to encourage the use of a standard European labeling rating, so that A, B, C, D, E means the same in terms of kilowatt hours per square meter. But we have to be careful because that is a bit unfair to Nordic countries, for example, where they have much higher requirements, at least for heating, than other member states. That could be one option. Other options that we're investigating, for example, that we have seen in research projects, is to define these common labeling or these common ratings across the EU, but then provide translation systems, automated translation systems. So they take a Greek EPC and they put it into these standard label, so to speak. Or other that we have also seen in projects, it's really an automated system translating. Okay, a Greek EPC means this on a Spanish EPC, for example, or on a Finnish EPC or an Irish. What we are definitely interested right now, though, is in the harmonization of the information that comes out from EPCs. So not so much the EPC label rating as such, but that we have EPC databases in all member states, that these EPC databases are reporting the same elements, because this is a very important link, for example, with the finance and with the real estate analysis. And what they ask us is we need to be able to really have the same elements in the EPCs, and that they are comparable to one another. That gives a lot of confidence to banks and real estate managers. When they see a different EPC in different member states, it causes a little bit of confusion. It's a bit difficult to explain, but if we can really report on the same mechanisms, then it really helps the financial sector, and it also helps in terms of knowing about the EU building stock. So it is something we're looking, and there is a number of options that that we're investigating right now.